One of the trickiest things in real estate is buying your new dream home, meanwhile having to sell the current house that you are living in. And in today's conversation, I'm going to give you 7 steps of how you can make this transition as effortless and smooth as possible to avoid the headache that many buyers or sellers that are doing the exact same thing that you're considering doing have done, but unfortunately didn't have a blueprint to really guide them. And in today's conversation, I am going to be sharing with you the steps that have allowed me to help dozens of our clients to make this transition as effortless as possible. But again, I still want to be very transparent with you about the things that, if nobody tells you, can quickly become into a nightmare. So let's get into the video. First thing that I want to start off with, and of course, as I mentioned before in previous videos, I know sometimes people say, no, you don't really need an agent to sell. I want to start off by saying you don't need an agent to sell, okay? I've said this before, I will say it again, Thomas, I will say it again, Nancy, but the truth is you don't need an agent. However, I don't need an attorney to defend me in the event that I were to do something that I wasn't supposed to and I needed to defend myself against the law. I just knocked on wood for those of you that didn't catch that. And the truth is I don't need an attorney, but I would still hire the right attorney to have my back in a situation where I was being accused of something that I am 100% not guilty of. Okay, now why this is important is because when I talk about you moving through this entire process, the first thing you need to do is find the right agent. Now, I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be me. It just has to be somebody that you genuinely feel has your best interest in mind. And I've said this time and time again because maybe you're considering buying this new dream home and you have this friend that is a realtor, or you have this cousin that is a realtor, and you've never actually worked with this person. You've never really seen their reviews or what they can do. But because you feel obligated, you're going to say, okay, Nancy, I'll hire you. The issue with this is if Nancy doesn't have experience in this process of transitioning from one property into the next, I am telling you, Nancy is going to not only cause you a headache, but Nancy is also going to cost you a lot of money. So why this is important in this first step is you need to find the right agent. And if you haven't seen our free guide that I have linked down below for you, I highly encourage you check it out, but it basically gives you questions that you want to ask when you're interviewing an agent. Super important, because this agent is going to allow you to get to the finish line, is going to assess, is going to give you feedback, is going to give you guidance that is really going to make this possible. And I've had situations in which I'm dealing with one side, let's say I'm dealing with the sellers, and I've been very transparent with the person that is representing the buyers, and I've said, hey, these are the current agreements that we need to meet, right? Have a meeting of the minds. And I need you to explain to your buyers that my clients, they 100% want to sell their home. However, we're going to need a lease back. And a lease back is super important for us to make this deal. And I'll get into it right now in a second. But let's just say this agent doesn't have the right negotiation style or doesn't have the right expertise when it comes to this. And let's just say they see this as a problem, right? And they go back and they tell their buyer, well, they do want to sell their home. However, they don't want to move out of the property right away because they need to secure the loan for their new home. Now, this can be something that, depending if you're working with somebody that doesn't have much experience in this, they're going to tell you right away, that's a red flag. No, don't do it. And I'm sharing this with you because I've had brokers on both ends of the spectrum. Some that are avid for it. They were like very much, okay, yes, this is a great structure on how to structure a deal to make it happen. Meanwhile, I've had other brokers say, no, you never, under no circumstances, allow somebody to lease back the property. Now, why is this important? Well, because if this other person that, again, is potentially interested in buying your home doesn't have the expertise to make this deal happen, what's going to happen is either, let's say, in this case, they're representing you, they don't really have the most knowledge to relate that message to the buyer's agent. Chances are the buyer's agent is going to advise their client to not accept, and you just lost out on a deal. So when you're hiring somebody ready to help you from moving into a new property and selling your current, you want to make sure they've done this before. And every single one of my clients, I always tell them we need to be very transparent with the agents at the beginning when they request a showing and let them know, hey, we're very motivated to sell. We actually already have another house under contract, and I'll share with you how to do that. But essentially I tell them, we already have another house under contract, we're ready to go. And the moment that you officially make an offer on this one, we can move quickly. Our client is fully qualified. We just need to remove this contingency of obviously selling our house in order for us to fully qualify for the new home. Basically, a contingency, just to make it very simple for you, is that we have like a protection in place that is protecting you as the seller of this home, that says to this new property that you're making an offer for, that until you sell your current home, you are not liable to purchase the other property. Now, this is why your agent needs to advise you, because we want to find a motivated seller on the other side as well, or in this case, that the house is a few months out, right, from being completed, in order for us to time it as relatively close to each other as we can. And again, the reason why when you are thinking about doing such a major move, because I'm telling you, not a lot of people have to either sell one home to get into the other home, or a lot of people, they just, it's their first property, or they already sold their property that they came from another state, so they're already renting here, and it just makes it a little easier for them. But maybe you're in a situation where you actually need to sell one piece of real estate to get into the new piece of real estate. Well, having an expert that actually knows how to structure the deal is super important. We literally just got done closing one, and I'm going to share with you this example so that you can see how quickly things can move. We went under contract within a week of being on the market. After going under contract, we essentially already had the other previous home that they wanted to make an offer for lined up. We had already seen it. We were just waiting to go under contract. And essentially, we basically told the other person, before even knowing that we were officially going to go under contract, we had already presented our offer. And we had told the other agent, in this case, the listing agent of the home they wanted to buy, that we needed to sell our home, that it was a very great home, that it was going to move really quickly. And again, mind you, at this time, we still were not under contract for their current house. But because of the relationship that I have with this other agent, because of the communication that I made sure to have, they advised their clients to accept this offer with the contingency that we had of selling our current home. Well, after going under contract, like I said, not only a week after, literally, we were already under contract for their current house. So now we actually related the message back to them to tell them, hey, remember how we had a 3-month contingency? Well, we're actually not going to need it. Everything is looking really good. We're going to be ordering the appraisal already with this new property, and we might actually end up closing within 30 days. What am I doing there? I'm already prepping them, because remember, when the seller, in this case, was advised by their listing agent to accept our offer, they were under the impression that we still were going to take, some time to sell our house, right? We were very transparent about that. Well, if I didn't relate that message back to this, in this case, the listing agent, to tell their seller, what would happen is that we're moving along over here, but they still think we're not ready, right? Because we have on the contract a different date. This is where things can get very tricky. And I'm telling you from personal experience, if you have an agent that's working with you that doesn't invest in systems, that doesn't invest in having team, in this case, transaction coordinators, assistants, managers to really manage the files, then you are more than likely going to be in a very tough situation, because what can happen is that now you're under contract with this house that you're about to now, let's say, order the appraisal on, but because you put 3 months out for the other one, the sellers are now like, well, no, I don't need to sell that quickly, and now I need more time, and now time is ticking on the house that you need to sell. So finding the right agent before you do anything else is the most important step of the 7 steps that we're going to go over. Now, point number 2 here is understand what a leaseback is. Now, this is where we want to make sure that you understand, what do you need? So a leaseback can be something as simple as, we're telling, in this case, the person that's buying your house, hey, I need you to lease back my home for a week in order for me to get settled into the new house that I'm buying. Going back to the example with these clients, what's happening is that we need to clear some of the debts that they have in order for them to fully qualify now for this next house, right? One of the debts being obviously their house, so that's going to reflect on their credit, but another being some maybe miscellaneous things that you have. Maybe the lender told you, hey, you need to pay off this credit card, or maybe the lender told you, hey, you actually have more than enough proceeds now to pay some of these bills that could really help you with your debt to income and maybe even give you a boost on your credit score, which can also help you even further with your monthly payment. So why this is important is because when we're very understanding of what a leaseback is and we explain it to the other parties involved, now we can all work together. In real estate, we call this a meeting of the minds, but it is extremely essential for all parties to be on the same page when we're trying to understand what the leaseback is for. Because again, going back to the example I shared earlier, there are some people out there that believe a leaseback is just absolutely a big no-no and we're not doing it, and I'll tell you why. What could happen in a situation where, let's say, somebody leases you back a property, right? Let's say in this case, the clients, they were authorized by the buyers, right, to lease back the property that is now obviously not theirs because they already officially transferred the title to the new buyers. What could happen is that in that time that we signed the lease and that you're living in that property, God forbid something happens to the home. Well, technically, now it's not you that's liable. Now it's the buyer that is liable for whatever damages that occurred. Now, this is where, again, to protect you, you can add certain details on the leaseback to ensure that you're protected. And in this case, let's say you were the one awarding the lease and allowing somebody else to lease back your property because you needed to make the deal work in today's market. Then, of course, you might just want to set like a security deposit, something that could protect you to really ensure that you don't end up being out this money if something were to happen. Now, thankfully, in all my years of doing real estate, I've never experienced a situation like that. But again, it is my job to share with you all the pros and cons so that you're prepared and you can make an educated decision. And if you have the right agent that is guiding you through all of this, then more than likely you already understand the leaseback situation. You already understand what we need to go in there and ask for. And it makes it a lot easier because, again, if I just share with you this part of the situation, you might say, oh no, that seems too hard to sell my house to buy a new one. But honestly, it is not hard when you have the right team that has done this time and time again. But just make sure, again, that you do understand what this period looks like so that you have no surprises. If you're in the process of buying your new home and selling your property, you want to also factor in your moving expenses. Most people don't factor this in and they stress out at the last minute because you didn't prepare. And maybe you're financially in a situation where you don't have to worry about that. That's great. But for the average person, sometimes, you have your down payment, you have your closing costs, you have, I don't know, maybe moving expenses from where you're relocating, and then having to factor in this case, let's say it's going to be a little pricier, right? Because now you're not only moving from one part of the city to another part, you're moving from one part of the state to another state. So that can be a lot more costly, and you just want to factor that in, okay? You want to call some companies, you want to understand what are their pod fees, what exactly are they going to provide, what services do they render, just to make sure you're prepared and you don't have any headaches. A pro tip here is that you can also just put everything, again, in this case, let's say you live in the same city, you can put everything in a storage room or a pod, have it at the front of the property, and when the time comes, they just move the pod into the new house. Very simple. I come from a Hispanic family, so for me, moving, when we would move, because we moved a lot as a kid, I remember that literally we would move within a day. Like, that was just what we had to do. So when I hear people that say like, oh, it takes like a long time, I think prepping to move can take a long time, like putting everything in boxes, but actually moving, the act of moving can be done in a day. Like within 24 hours, you can move out of your house. Is it ideal? No, but can it happen? Yes. So this is where you just want to be prepared, because again, I have had situations where, let's say we're selling one house, and this actually recently happened too. We were selling one property. The buyers that were buying this property also, they had to agree to our lease back because that was the term of why we were willing to sell them the property. So they allowed us to have a lease back. My clients were expected to essentially close on the other home that we were buying and then start moving things in so that they wouldn't be too stressed out. But when we actually were telling the new, in this case, the new house, the listing agent, hey, we want to move up the closing date, at the last minute, they said no, that wasn't going to work for them. And this is where I always encourage you again to work with an agent that has good relationships, because unfortunately with this agent, what she did to, in this case, our sellers that were selling their house and now her buyers, well, my buyers, right, but that were buying her listing, is that we were very clear at the beginning about the fact that this day on the contract was tentative. And we did also get it in writing that this was something we were going to agree to, but at the last minute, they decided that just wasn't going to work for them. So it did affect my sellers in this case, because now their time crunch really was decreased. And this is where really you want to have protocols in play. In this case, I actually have an Airbnb that I was able to also offer to the clients. I just try to make it work to help them as best as I could. But again, just be prepared, because sometimes in real estate, like, we don't want to talk about it because it's like, oh, nobody wants to talk about the bad in real estate, but it can happen. Things can take a turn really quickly. And if you don't have a team, again, going back to point one, they can have your back, it can become overwhelming very, very quickly. So in this case, everything was good. But again, just making sure that you work with somebody that has these relationships, that has some backup plans for you in the event that things don't happen exactly the way that you want them to, is super essential for this transition to be as smooth as possible. Now, of course, I think this goes without saying, but before you even decide like you want to sell your house, let's get clear on what you want to buy. Because what I do with most of my clients is that we literally, like, we're already on the same page that we want to sell their house. We already know how much money we can get for their house. We're already very clear on what it is that our ultimate estimate on proceeds it's going to be. So now we speak with the lender. We speak with the lender so that we can find out what is their buying power. From actually understanding their buying power, now we can actually give them some recommendations that are going to fit their price point. In this case, once we actually found out how much they were going to qualify for, I now told them, okay, here's a list of properties that are going to suit the needs based off what you shared with me. Highlight the top 5 that you like, and let's go check those out. A lot of agents don't do this, and they just want to show you like 30 plus houses. I believe that's a waste of your time. I believe that that's not the proper way to do it. If I was in a realtor and you were, I was hiring a realtor, I wouldn't want a realtor to just take me to like 30 houses just for the sake of telling me that they showed me houses. It's like the equivalent to being at the, at the mall, at, a store, and me telling the salesman what I want, and instead of the salesman actually giving me options based off what I told them I liked, they're showing me a bunch of red bags. And I specifically told them I wanted a black bag. Well, that's the same thing that your agent actually should be avoiding when sending you properties. If you already told them what you're looking for, we should be able to send you the best based off everything and saw based off our listing services that we have. And now you decide from this list of 20, or if you have a more particular taste, maybe 10 houses that we found for you, and choose the right ones. From there, we go and actually view these homes so that we can decide which one ideally you would like to place an offer on. Now, again, we can't place an offer yet because you're still not on the market, but at least now we know which property it is that you're interested in. And some agents might tell you otherwise. They might say, hey, let's put the house on the market first and then we can go start looking. But what if you put your house on the market, you have a situation like you did with the example I just shared with you, your team actually spends money advertising online so that we can drive more traffic, and let's say within the first week you're under contract and now you still haven't decided on what house that you are interested in. Now you're under under this ticking little bomb that you are pressured under, and you don't really feel like you have the time to choose. Now, of course, we can run the risk of by the time that you put it on the market, that house isn't available, but I'd rather you take that risk than feel like you went on the market and now you're stuck not finding the property that you would really like. Because most of my clients do tell me, like, I want to make sure that I find the right house in order for me to make this move, and if I don't, then I'm okay staying here. You want to make sure that your agent is really listening to that so that they send you options based on what's going to be important for you and making it work based off, again, your timelines. Step number 6 here is you really need to understand your market conditions. There's a lot of different seasons in real estate, and to make this very simple for you, when you're in a buyer's market, what that means is that there is more opportunity for buyers. Simple as that. When you're in a seller's market, all that means is that there's more leverage, more opportunities for sellers because there's more demand and there's less supply. The more, again, in this case, simple economics 101, if there is less supply, in this case houses, and there's more buyers, aka more demand, then obviously now you're in a competitive advantage as a buyer. But in this market, at the time of this recording in 2025, the market is in the favor of the buyers. And I will say, it comes down to the strategy also. I've had some listings like the one I was sharing with you guys that we priced it slightly below market value, and this is what really triggered an attention to the property as quickly as it did. There's different strategies, and I will say this to you and I will say it to you again, this is why you want to hire a right agent. I hear a lot of agents are willing to negotiate their commission structures, and I will tell you this right now, and I'm gonna make a whole other video on it, on things that I just don't budge for as a realtor, but I don't agree in negotiating my commission. I agree that there are some agents out there that do not deserve the amount that they get paid, because I've shared it in other videos. Like, they just don't look out for you. They don't answer. They don't have options for you. They leave you to handle everything. They don't manage any actual engagement on social media. They're not paying for professional ads. They're not doing any of these things. And yeah, in that case, then they should be receiving a lower commission. But for those agents that we actually put our money where our mouth is and we actually invest in our business because we see it as a business, then yes, I do believe that the right agent should get compensated appropriately, because they're not just a door opener, they're actually doing above and beyond work for you. But with that being said, I do believe that you want to really understand this agent that is going to be working for you, because the reason I brought that up is a lot of the times you find the wrong agent that is willing to already, decrease their commission. They're already willing to negotiate their commission. That means that their negotiation skills might not be the sharpest. That means that they maybe are a little more pressure to sell because maybe they're not making the ends meet that they want. So just ask yourself this: do you really think they're going to negotiate in your behalf when it comes to an offer coming in that maybe isn't in alignment with what you could actually get, but because they're pressed for money, they're not going to tell you this, and now you just left a bunch of money on the table? I am telling you, this is why making sure you really are working with the right people ties into these market conditions. And why I was mentioning that is because you want an agent that is going to be very honest with you about these market conditions, so that you don't end up going live on the market and having your house sit there for a couple of months because your agent was too afraid to tell you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're overpricing your house. And then you're sitting there wondering, why is my house not getting any showings? Why is my house not selling? Super, super important for you to make this transition as smooth as possible. Understand your market. And again, if you work with the right agent, we're going to explain to you the market and really give you the evidence to back up what we're sharing, not just from the perspective of take it from me. No, let me show you the numbers so that you can see what comps are selling for in your area, and let's decide on a price that is going to help us appeal to the buyer's market in which we are currently in. Last step in this process is really ensure that your specialist, your agent, is taking the time to find you a deal that's going to work for you. And I have said this before, but if you work with a great agent, we're really good at helping you save money. And that's the reason why, and I've seen it time and time again, I've had agents that they're newer to the market and haven't adapted to the new strategies that are now coming about, which is a lot of online presence. And when you're not working with an agent that actually understands the power of leveraging these tactics that we've talked about, what can happen is that you leave money on the table. And when I talk to certain agents that are newer, or maybe they don't close as many transactions, it's almost like they're afraid to really negotiate for you because they're trying to make the deal work. So they're trying to be like a people pleaser with the listing agent, but at the same time, they still want to make the deal work for you. And I'll give you an example. There was this one deal that recently we actually would have paid more in closing costs just because of the situation, but that agent came in asking us for less than what we were willing to help with. And I found that very interesting because it's not the first time that that happens. And I was just asking myself what their client would think if they found out they just left $10,000 on the table. So this is super important. A lot of people don't realize how important this is, but at the end of the day, you really need to make sure you're working with somebody that knows what they're doing, has your best interest in mind. And as I've said before in other videos, yes, of course, we work for a commission, but again, you can do things ethically. You do not have to take advantage of people. You do not have to have commission breath. You do not have to try to make the other person feel like you just see them as a sales number. I do believe that you can take care of people and still feed your family. And this is why I believe that when you work with the right agent that has expertise, that has knowledge about the market, and that does have your best interest in mind, you can make this transition as smooth as possible. So I hope these 7 steps really help you in transitioning from your current home into your new dream home. And again, just to reference all of the links on the tools that you can utilize to interview an agent, or maybe you're relocating into El Paso, I have them all linked down below for you so you can check those out. They are absolutely free. And if you would like to schedule a consultation with us, our Calendly link is all linked down below. I've mentioned this before, but whether you're thinking about relocating into El Paso a year from now or a month from now, my team and I would love to assist you. And yes, we do have agents throughout the United States. So even if you're not thinking about buying here or selling here in El Paso, I do have an agent for you. And yes, I have personally vetted them because I want to make sure that I give you a recommendation that is going to really take care of you and look out for your best interest. So with that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any feedback or any other videos you would like for us to cover. Until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.